my name is Douglas V. Gibbs, Mr. Constitution. I am concerned about a number of things, but I'm especially worried about democracy. So we are being inundated with ads about the upcoming election. It's time for democracy 2022. And no election has ever been more important when it comes to saving our democracy. As Americans, we are told, and we assume, that America operates as a democracy. We grew up believing one person, one vote must be applied to all parts of the American system. Don't worry, we've been told we have fair and free elections, and the will of the people trumps all else. It's secure and honest, so there's nothing to worry about. Now, on the surface, that sounds great. You get to vote for whichever candidate you want at all levels of government because the government belongs to you, and that's what you want. It's been that way all along, we are told. And after all, the preamble of the United States Constitution, you know, that document that establishes our system, the one that most people seem not to know? Well, the first words of the preamble of the Constitution of the United States begins with three very simple words. We the people. We the people. That must mean we're democratic, right? Democracy. Founding Fathers, however, did not intend this country to be a democracy. The word democracy does not appear in the Declaration of Independence nor in the United States Constitution. They envisioned a republic, which includes mechanisms that go way beyond a democracy. They looked back in history and realized that democracies fail. Too much power in the hands of the voting public always leads to disaster. So they constructed a republic, with not only representation in a bicameral Congress, but one with multiple ways of choosing the representatives. The members of the House of Representatives were voted in directly by democratic vote by the people based on districts determined by population, as it is today. But the Senate, the United States Senate, which never had districts based on population because it's designed to be 2 senators per state, giving the states with a minority population the opportunity to have an equal voice in the chamber, was not at first populated through democracy. The senators were voted into their seats indirectly by the people, appointed by the state legislatures. The state House of Representatives or Assembly appointed one, and the state Senate appointed the other. And since the state Senates were not based on population, but by a method that included 1 senator per county, the less populated regions had a significant voice in the U.S. Senate. Now, one who may disagree with the distinction might still argue that there's no difference between a republic and a democracy. If a system has any democratic procedures in it, one might argue it's still a democracy. And in fact, just about anything can be called a democracy if you don't have the specific defining terms. The Soviet Union was called democratic by its leaders. Communism came to Russia through the Russian Revolution with a promise of more democracy. And in the name of democracy, the Soviet Union became a police state, a communist dictatorship with leaders who claimed they achieved their positions of power through democracy. So in places like the Soviet Union, North Korea, and China, the silencing and killing of political opponents were dubbed democratic reform. Democracy, after all, is not what it seems to be, but how it's defined by the tyrants in power. In all cases in history, democracies have been transitional governments, systems that, once the people begin to vote into place authoritarian leaders because, they offer the people bread and circuses and a promise of more from where that came from, rule from an elitist stance, claiming theirs is a system based on the rule of law. And when in reality it is merely based on, a rule that is based on according to whatever their whims and desires are. On the surface, democracy always promises to be about the people, but in the end, it always leads to oligarchy, the most common form of government on the planet and throughout history, which means rule by a powerful few over the many. The oligarchies and those in America seeking to change us into an oligarchy continue to wave around smoke and mirrors and make their people believe they still have their democracy. Elections are still taking place, and the elections are not as fair and secure as the purveyors of such systems claims, but hey, as Joseph Stalin has been attributed with saying, despite questions regarding the true source, I care not whose vote counts, I care who counts the votes. Joseph Stalin also said, while bragging about the 1937 election in the Soviet Union after the Communist Party reached nearly a 100% overwhelming victory, never in the history of the world have there been such really free and really democratic elections. Never. History knows no other example like it. Stalin claimed that in the world only the Soviet Union had truly free and democratic elections. As he claimed that the Soviet Union was truly democratic, Joseph Stalin orchestrated the murder of over 1 million people, dissidents who dared to question, or people he feared through his paranoia might be against him. History calls it the Great Purge. And there's no doubt by those of the world watching that what was going on in the Soviet Union was anything but democratic. It was totalitarian in the name of democracy, but it was democracy that originally allowed such a leviathan to consume Russia and countries devoured by the Soviet Union. It began with democracy because democracy is a transitional system that always leads to tyranny, authoritarianism, and death. Democracy, we are told, has been under attack in America. We must save our democracy. It has been the battle cry. Recently President Biden, whose supporters claim his ascension to power was thanks to democracy and the most truly free, secure, and democratic presidential election in the history of the United States, claimed that our democracy is at risk. Democracy is not on the ballot. Potential representatives are. And if we are to return to being a republic, the mad dash to stop the rise of tyranny in this country would not be on the ballot either. The Democrats, however, are in a mode full of fear. They realize that even democracy might be turning against them. Their policies are unpopular, and as a result, even the voters they thought would always vote for them are questioning their choices. So a demonization of anyone who stands against them has once again become the campaign. But this time they must convince the voters who are questioning their policies that their opponents are seeking to destroy the democracy we all know and love. They are projecting their authoritarian dreams upon their opposition, and if you don't vote Democrat, you are dooming the democracy. Vote blue or democracy dies. Vote for their crazy policies, or your choice to be whoever and however and whatever you want is dead. And if they don't win, democracy dies, and somehow America will descend back into the previous centuries where some people are in chains and women are simply property, and the monarchs of the white supremacist GOP will institute an aristocracy of control and anti-progress. The scary part is there are people that actually believe that untrue narrative. In the end, what Biden is talking about is not saving democracy. It is about saving their control of the system. If they continue down the current path, if their grip on the totalitarian lever slips at all, well, it'll send them back. They don't need another stick in their spokes like they saw with the election of Donald J. Trump. They are concerned about their power. So they are desperately screaming that you must vote Democrat or else you will lose democracy forever. They have become paranoid like certain totalitarian leaders of the past. They are lashing out. They are issuing warnings. They know that there are those out there who dare to disagree with them. And to do so, well, that puts democracy in danger. Save democracy or else you might find yourself censored by the wrong censors, silenced by the wrong authoritarians. It is as if former President Obama was saying, we are the proper ones to know what is hate speech, and your freedom of speech is in danger if you allow candidates to be elected who allow, well, any speech. They are saying we must save democracy to save America. But what they are really saying is we must save democracy to save their level of power and control over you. Like past regimes from totalitarian dictatorships in history, their message is basically that democracy legitimizes their rule. Save democracy really means approve of their authoritarian rule because the opposition is scarier than we are. The problem is the opposite is true. Democracy is not what is at stake. Our republic is what is at stake. Their rule of man is not what is at stake as much as the rule of law. The laws of nature and of nature's God, as it says in the Declaration of Independence. A system where the government is limited by the specific enumeration of powers and by the checks and balances that exist throughout our system of laws, that's what's in danger. Should they win again, whether it is done without irregularities or not, all of that's in danger. Americans know what is at stake. The experts are saying that there will be a record turnout, and others are claiming a red wave is about to crest over the shores of America. And we the people, we seem to think that voting is the only power we have to get things corrected. So we're ready to appear at the ballot box in record numbers. And just like we did a couple years ago, right? But the question is democracy, in other words, are your votes the only tool you have to restore our country's Republican form of government? Is voting the only method you have to combat the madness that seems to be happening in the halls of government? Democracy and representation are only a part of what the system is supposed to be about. And voting is a minor part of your responsibility as a citizen of this country. The problem is the enemies of the Constitution have taken away most of the other mechanisms that were in place, that were instituted to shield this country against their kind of policies and rule. This election may stop the madness if we win back the houses of Congress, but it fixes nothing. Democracy will simply be wielded again and again until they ultimately achieve what they desire, a socialistic America that's well on its way down the road to communism. Democracy does not need to be saved. It is the problem. In this election, we must use democracy to oust the office holders who are trying to plunge America into becoming a socialist hellhole so that we may then concentrate on restoring the mechanisms of our republic and repeal democracy. Our democracy is not at stake. The last remnants of our republic is. A rejection of the Democrat Party's anti-Constitution stances, their embrace of authoritarian and collectivistic ideals, their attitude that the way to fix things is more government rather than less government, that's what 2022 is all about. Because of how messed up our system is, we can't use the republic to save the republic. We have to use democracy to return to being in a position to save the republic. Otherwise, they will continue to ban certain videos, continue to silence certain reporters, continue to destroy free speech and the freedom of press, and continue to target our children with communist and sexually inappropriate education, and continue their slash and burn campaign through the moral foundation of America's system of liberty. They have already put some of their political opponents in jail, and if they pull off the 2022 midterms, that practice will likely increase. The silencing of their opposition will become more intense. The FBI, aka Democrat Party Standing Army, will increase their campaign of illegal search and seizures and dragging those who dare to disagree with the Democrats from their homes, as we have seen lately with pro-life individuals who dared to hold signs within the vicinity of an abortion clinic, or pray at an abortion clinic, or rally on the lawn of the Capitol a year and a half ago. Democracy, according to the Democrats, doesn't belong to the people anyway. It's theirs, and it's their duty to vote the way, and it's your duty to vote the way they tell you. You can't walk into the Capitol because that doesn't belong to you either. It's theirs. There's a fence around the White House because it's theirs too. And if democracy keeps going the way it's been, with Stalin-like tactics, that won't belong to you much longer either. It all belongs to the Democratic Party, according to them. And if you say otherwise, you're a rebel, you're a white supremacist, and you're a insurrectionist. If you believe you have a right to question them, their message to you is that it is their right to never let go of the reins of the government of America. Their goal is a one-party system, a Soviet-style democracy, a one-party system that is for the people because they say it is, not because it really is. And to disagree with them, well, that's undemocratic.